All right, we're going to keep it moving here, and we are going to move to the Big 12. Kelvin Sampson in Houston, just another year, 27-4, one of the best defensive teams in the country, one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country, and frankly, one of the hardest playing teams in the country. I think, we've talked about who's this year's Marcus Sasser. Do they have that star power? I'm not sure that they do, but I think collectively, this is a team that is every bit as good as some of the Houston teams we have seen in years past. And I think nationally, they may actually be a little bit underrated. When you talk to teams they've played, when you look at the numbers, it tells a pretty convincing story. These guys are as good as it gets in college basketball. Not only are they the favorite to win the Big 12 conference tournament, but they are a legitimate NCAA tournament threat, top 10 in the country in offense, and the second best defense overall in college basketball. Trotter, your pick to win the Big 12 tournament this week, given that I just went with Houston, is who?
Yeah, I'm mixing it up still. Let me look at Arizona too. This is a group where if I'm looking at trying to win multiple games in different ways, I think Arizona's roster does that. Like they do a great job of tweaking their lineups and just kind of mismatch hunting depending on who they're playing on a night-to-night basis. It is not the Caleb Love show every single night. Jaden Bradley has taken on a bigger role. They've had really good opportunities where they get KJ Lewis times to cook in transition a little bit. Trey Townsend has emerged for them lately as a guy that they can find against different mismatches. I love the front court that they have. Henry Visar has been terrific as a stretch five. Toby Awaka adds that physicality. Carter Bryant as a freshman where, just the ball comes off his hand so clean as a shooter. So this group, extremely good defensively. I think that they've had some times where their defense hasn't looked as good as the numbers necessarily indicate just because of the matchups. Like some of those small ball teams have given them some issues as well. Some of the finesse teams, Arizona State gave them some issues because Arizona State basically played, four guards for that entire game due to their injuries. So I like Arizona. Like this is a group a little bit down the board. If you're looking at betting markets or a little bit farther down the board, I think they're the fourth or fifth highest odds in this league, but they have championship level upside. I think they could get hot here in Kansas City.
Getting hot is really the key, right? And so is confidence for them because this season has been kind of in inverted bell curve. They started out really slow. Everybody was asking, what's wrong with Arizona? What's wrong with Arizona? Are they even going to be an NCAA tournament team? Then all of a sudden they take off, right? They have this great start to conference play. And yet lately they've lost 5 of their last 8. Now, a lot of them have been against some of the better teams in the country, teams like Houston, Iowa State, even Kansas on the road the other day. But then there have been also some losses like Kansas State in particular. I know BYU is a pretty controversial one, shall we say. But losing 5 out of 8, they don't necessarily have the same mojo they did a month ago. So that is my question about that squad. Can they get the confidence back and fight through the adversity that it will inevitably take to win multiple games in a row and win a conference tournament? When we start to talk about sleepers, though, and you mentioned, I mentioned BYU, certainly a team that's very, very hot. But I want to talk a little bit about Baylor because this is a team that has been decimated by injuries all season long. You picked them as your sleeper. I am aligned with you on that front. What is it about this club that makes you optimistic?
Well, first off, it's just hard because I feel like in the Big 12, the difference between the haves and the have-nots is just really drastic. The top of the league compared to the bottom of the league is just wildly different. Baylor's kind of in that in-between ground. They were supposed to be in that tier 1, and they haven't necessarily got there. And even despite the injuries to big man Josh Ojianwuna, they really miss his rim protection. But despite all of that, Baylor's a really tough guard. Like they still are. And if you're going into a game being like, all right, we got to find a way to stop Rob Wright, and then we have to find a way to stop Langston Love and Jeremy Roach, and then VJ Edgecombe, who's probably a top 5 or 6 pick, and you still have Norchad O'Meara there. Like that's a tough team to play. And I don't think I like Baylor against some of these like extremely physical turnover forcing defenses like a Houston. I don't like that matchup. But they have a chance to play Texas Tech in that second round. That is a game where they're going to have to, that's a little bit more of a finesse game. I don't think Texas Tech's defense is quite as much of a turnover forcing unit that could give them trouble. I like how Baylor matches up against Texas Tech far more than I do against like an Arizona or against, a team like Houston. So give me Baylor to make a little bit of a run. And guess what? They also have desperation on their side too. They absolutely need it for their NCAA tournament hopes. Like I think they need to win their first game and they might need to win their second game to head into Selection Sunday feeling really good about their chances.
Fair enough, but I'm with you. I like Baylor to make some noise this week. All right, my player to watch in the Big 12 tournament is Richie Saunders. And if you haven't watched him yet, you're missing out because BYU is playing phenomenal basketball. They've won 5 in a row, including that game at Arizona that we mentioned. Richie Saunders averaging 16 points per game, about 4.5 rebounds, and about an assist and a half. But when you look at these highlights, you notice the spacing in Kevin Young's system, and this guy has thrived in the system. His shooting splits are 51% from the floor, 44 from behind the three-point line, and 80% from the free throw line. In the amount of space that they have, he's not only a shot maker and floor spacer, but he's someone who can put the ball on the floor and attack straight line drives. He can get the ball moving, and once they get it moving, they don't stop. BYU's offense has been a ton of fun to watch. Richie Saunders is my player to watch in this week and in this week's tournament. And if you haven't seen that Kevin Young interview, make sure you head on over to our YouTube channel that you're watching right now, One-on-One with Kevin Young a few weeks ago. He breaks down his vision for this BYU system and what drew him to them from the NBA.